Howdy, howdy. My iPad set up, but it's not gonna cooperate today, so we're just gonna use the simulator. We'll be fine. Hopefully everything shows up. I think we're on. Okay, so today, continue working on Draw UI library. Is a iPad canvas view that you can add to any app. Easily accept drawing input and build that and run the demo real quick. Go. A while ago, a long time ago, I made a note-taking app, and I really enjoyed the process, but a lot of the experiments that I had done were different draw canvases, been lost to time. So that's kind of what this project is about. It has a couple different renderers use up at the top. So you can use CA layers, you can use tiled layers, you can draw rect, simple draw rect, or slightly smarter draw rect, and then draw on your canvas. And right here it's using the velocity of the touch for the width of the pen. So it looks a little bit inky. That's fine. What I would like to do today is, yeah, I couldn't load it, so we can save it, draw, and we should be able to load it. Can't load it. Maybe it's a simulator thing. Anyway, doesn't matter. Today we're going to work on eraser. I think a reasonable thing to do. I think it should be pretty straightforward. Open for a quick stream today. This guy down, segment, roll. Have a pen and eraser. Those are our only options. Whenever I drag around, it sticks it inside of this inner view, and I don't want any subviews. Vertical spacing, 8. Horizontally, same thing for go. So all I want is I want either a pen or I want only two options I care about. Toggle, one is active. If by segmented control. And we'll just choose a pen. 2 to 7. Fine. Just keep that. And if eraser, we're just going to have a flat 20 size. It won't have any change in size. At all as you drag around. It's just gonna erase a simple circle. so there we go. And then I think we have to set, what else do we set? Oops. We have to give this to the draw view, right? That sounds good, because then when it draws, it's going to process with the tool right then. That's what we want. So it should already do what we want, I believe. Let's hook up this control. Oops. Cool. And just to prove it works, instead of clear, change between black and white and black and red. I think this should work. Now we open up our simple drawing view. We draw with black. We switch to eraser. It's still drawing black, but it's at least the right size now, so that's good. Let's figure out why it's not using red. Why is it not using our color that we gave it? One thing that I saw before I started the stream, that guy, which is weird. That color, that's fine. Oh, you know what it is? I think it's just that our renderers don't care about the color at all yet. Yeah, it's just defaulting to black in the renderer. But I think that should actually give us the correct thing. So the element color draw and stroke, tool, color is red. Red 100%, green and blue 0%, alpha 100%. That's giving us the correct color. Great. So if we update that so it actually uses stroke color. Oh, sorry. Same thing here, drawing. That should be good. Let's update all of the other renderers as well. Black color. Oops. There we go. Now that one's going to render in the correct color. These, and once we get it toggling between black and red, we'll switch to and do eraser, which is a bit it'll be interesting because it'll be hopefully easy, I think, for these two, and probably for this one, the tiled, the naive, and the smart. The CA layer uses shape layers, and I think for the eraser we're going to use masking, mask the content to the path, and I'm hoping that'll be fast enough, but it might not be. Anyway, that'll be an experiment. We're going to do the easy ones first. Let's update that. Go. So now we're at leading constraint business. Oh, I thought I fixed that last stream. And it's not giving me the little auto fix, so I'm not going to worry about it. Actually doesn't matter. Okay, so black pen, and this should be red. It is. It's red. Wonderful. That renderer works. Oh, that's See how it's not drawing correctly? It's kind of clipping. That's because the width of the stroke is 20, but I'm only redrawing a smaller section of the view. I'm not redrawing the entire square. I need to fix that real quickly. Stroke path bounds. That's not quite right. Set by negative stroke tool max width, max size. Yeah. There we go. So what it was doing is as I draw, see how it's clipping right there? So it's actually, it thinks that the stroke is that size, when in reality, because of the radius of the brush circle, so it should be generating that square. And so that's what we're fixing here. We're just telling it to just grow that box a little bit. And so now it should give us the full range. Simple black. Let's do the red. Yeah, and so now it's refreshing the entire square. So that's good. Great. So now let's just commit that. Switch between pen and red marker, maybe. Right. So again, all this is open source. You can follow along if you care. There's the Git URL. So you're welcome to check out the code and run it on your own iPad, your own iPhone. All right, so the next thing we want to do is eraser, right? And so instead of a red color, we're going to give it a blank color, a nil color. And we're just going to focus on the smart renderer here. And we render the stroke. So I had to look up some code because I had this code a long time ago. It is this guy, this blend mode business right here. I believe this is the bit that we want. So if we have a color, otherwise it's an eraser, right? And after it's all done, we need to reset the blend mode. That way we're good citizens with our context here. Go. Now what it's doing is yeah, that's right. Okay. Actually lift this outside of the if statement and get rid of this guy as well. There we go. All right, so now what's happening is we enter with a normal blend mode. If we have a color, we're gonna just use set. We'll use that to draw. If we have an eraser, then we're going to clear, and anything we draw with the full opacity white should be erased. That's the goal. It's not actually drawing white, it's erasing, even though our canvas is white. But we'll prove that to ourselves a little bit later. So it sets our blend mode, and then it draws the path, and then resets the blend mode to normal. So that way on the next pass, the next draw operation, wherever it is, has the correct blend mode. Okay. Now we have our pen. And if we erase, nothing is happening. Why would nothing happen? It's acting like it's not even getting an update. Okay, so here we are. We're getting the touch events. We have one to process. Create a new stroke, and we're creating it. This should be the eraser. It is. It has a nil color, so that's our eraser, which is great. On the next event, it comes in add the event. Segment smoother, which tells us what the path is going to be when we draw. The width is 20. Here feels like is where the problem is. Here we go. So we have an element. Set the width, fence, yep. Yeah, so it's good. So we're creating all the right things. And when it ends, add it, have a bunch. Yep. So we are getting the correct, our data model is correct. Now we have to find out why it's not actually drawing it to the screen. Why would it not be drawing it to the screen? The last rendered version is 396. Here we go, 397. So this guy should draw. Oh, that's silly. That's really funny. It is doing everything. It's doing everything we want. The reason it's not working, because I'm not paying attention. We need to be on the correct renderer over here. On the smart renderer. So the naive renderer, that's what we drew. We have a couple different ways we draw to the screen. We have the smart draw rect, which just uses the draw rect method. But it also sets display and rect. We have the naive, which is the exact same, except it just sets display on the entire screen. What we might do to make this a little easier, actually, just send smart one. File view, did update model. Play. There. Now they share all of their code together. That's really nice of them. Great. But anyway, so we have, and then we have a CA tiled layer, which is also, it doesn't use drawRect, but it uses draw layer, which is just the CA layer version of drawRect. And then it draws in tiles in a multi-threaded background way. And then there's CA layer. And CA layer is the one that we were on, the one we were looking at and wondering why nothing showed up. And then nothing showed up because we have not told it to show anything up yet, because we haven't actually worked on that. So now let's try again. Both the smart draw and the naive draw should both work. So we can just draw. We can go to tiled. Tiled shows up just fine. Naive shows up just fine. And smart shows up just fine. So now the eraser works great. And for naive, eraser works great. For tiled, it should show black, and it does. And for the layer, it won't show anything. So now let's do the tiled. Let's update the eraser for that. You can kind of see, well, you might not be able to see it. I think I'm only streaming at 15 FPS. But when I switch to tiled, you can kind of see it fade in little squares. You can see where the squares are when it renders. It's kind of fun. Probably turn that animation off one day, but that's just its default animation. That gentle fade. Okay, we just do the same thing we did in the others. If we have a color, we set it. Otherwise, we set our blend mode. I believe in CA layers, we can still just get the current context away. Let's find out. Fill, and then we're going to reset the context. Okay. So I think that should do it. I might have to look up the context to see if layers do something different for the context or not. All right, our tiled layer, we do the eraser. Yeah. Now the eraser works in 3 out of 4 of our little drawing render options. The CA layer, the last one to do, not doing anything. And this is the one that I have the most heartache about. I think this one might be a pain. Okay. So for the CA layer, what I think we want to do is, so we're using shape layers. And shape layers, for each one of these, each time something is drawn, creates an extra layer. You think of it as like a piece of cellophane on top of it. And so all of these, every time I draw, it's an additional piece of cellophane getting added on top, added on top, added on top. And all of those pieces of cellophane, all those layers exist together. So if I draw 20 different lines, I have 20 different shape layers sitting there in my view. So to erase I don't believe these have a blend mode. I have a fill mode that's different. I don't know what that is. Oh, that's a yeah, that's something for animations. So since I can't in these and all the other renderers, I could use this blend mode clear, which tells it to everything is drawing to the same piece of cellophane essentially for these other three rendering modes. But in CA layer, it's only adding new pieces of cellophane onto it, right? And so what I think we need to do is tell it to mask the layer. Tell it to only show pieces of those 20 pieces of cellophane that are outside the path of our eraser. So let's try and do that. What we're going to do is we're going to have a CA layer here, our canvas layer. Layer for stroke. Then what we're going to do is instead of we add sublayer. Am I just missing it? There we go. Draw view layer. Add sublayer. So there, instead, what we're going to do is use our own canvas layer. Brew layer. And add things to our canvas layer. And then when we erase, we can add a mask to this canvas layer, and I think that will give us the effect that we want. That's the assumption. Do that down here as well. This bit of code here, the set actions, we can actually do set our delegate. That set actions turns off animations. By default, CA layers animate any change that they have, and we don't want any animation. We want it to show up nice and sharp, crisp, and immediately. Okay, so now we add it to our canvas layer instead. Great. Last thing we want to do our frame is not, we want to set the size of our layer. So if our layer is not the same size as the layer that's in the draw view, and we want to set that. There we go. So now what this does is this makes sure that our canvas layer is added into the draw view. This makes sure that our canvas layer is the exact same size as the draw view. And then if we rotate the iPad, draw view is going to change size, but will already be added as a layer. So it'll still update our size if we need to every time a new drawing comes in. Probably also need to detect rotations later, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I don't want to worry about rotations. I just want to get the eraser working. So now we should be able to do everything we need except for this fill color. Let's just make sure we didn't break anything. Everything should behave the exact same as it did. Drawing, drawing, drawing. Everything feels nice and clean. The eraser does nothing because we still haven't implemented it yet, but we did not break anything. Great. Okay. Now we do what making me nervous. Here, oops, what's happening here, I think we want to just say if it's colored, do that. Otherwise, if it's an eraser, do this over here. Because what a color is doing is it's looking at all the layers that are there, pulling out the layer for that element if it exists, or it's creating one if it does not exist. It's updating it and then adding it to that layer if we need it to. We have one layer per stroke, and then inside of that stroke we have layers per segment. Actually, what we can do doing the same trick here where we're using white as the color that will be used for the mask. Yeah. Then now that we've rendered our stroke, oops, wrong one. Here we want if we're using a color, then just add that stroke to the canvas. It's like we normally would. And if not, then set the mask to our layer. Set the mask. That's what we want, but that's going to be reversed. That's going to be the reverse of what we want. That's going to mask everything inside of the eraser so we can see things inside the eraser, I think. Let's try. We draw things, and now what I think and kind of hope is going to happen is that we draw, but then with the eraser, yeah, we're kind of showing what's below the eraser. We need a sort of like reverse mask. We want it to hide everything inside of our path instead of showing everything inside of our path. maybe what we can do, maybe we weren't that far off originally when we were thinking about doing all of this if we're in a normal mode. Otherwise, we're going to do this, but we're going to do this once. What this is doing is for every little segment, whenever I draw, whenever I draw, let's just clear it. It actually has a lot of different segments make up the single stroke. So what this does is this loops through each individual one, and every little segment is its own layer. What I want to do down here is the entire path is going to be one layer, regardless of how many segments it has. Here's my eraser path. Here, if we have a sublayer, get it, otherwise create a shape layer. We're going to use our eraser path. We're going to use white. We're going to add that, and this is going to be here. So this is very similar. This should actually behave the exact same way we just saw, but it's going to be easier to deal with because now everything is in a single path. So we can reverse that path. We can basically flip it and say this path represents everything on the outside of it instead of this path represents everything inside of it. And then that should get the reverse masking effect that we're looking for. But for now, it should give us the same problem, and it does, which is good, ironically. I don't think we just literally reverse it. I think there are different fill modes. Fill rules, sorry. CA shape, CA rule. Yeah, even, odd, or non-zero. And these are affected by, I don't remember which one we need. I always just kind of pick one based on guess, test, revise. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure this is gonna not work. But let's just make sure that it doesn't work. Draw, same problem, which is great. So this is doing something where I'm basically adding the entire universe, and then I append this path. What I might end up doing, oops, I don't need to set it as equals. What I might end up doing is setting this to the bounds of the view, but I don't want to do that quite yet. Let's just see if the infinite works. No, it does not. Oops. So rule, CA, rule, I think we want even odd. Even odd, it switches if it's in the, what's the default? The default's probably non-zero, right? Yeah, the default is non-zero. So actually, I'm gonna think of it with even odd. Yeah, with even odd, I think we can just reverse the path. Try that. Because it's going to start counting the even odd on the other side of the path. Oh, that's bizarre. What's going on there? That's funny. All right, well, we don't want that. I think it's giving all of these terribleness because our eraser path is overlapping itself as I scribble, maybe? Even when I don't overlap myself. I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. Doesn't work, doesn't matter. Instead of infinite, let's just do really big. That'll be temporary code just to see if it works, but I think that CG rect infinite. One of those things where there's a million different ways to say a very similar thing. Yeah, so that's kind of what we want. But it's not what we want all at the same time. I think this has to do with how I'm building the path. So when I build that border path here, take this end oval off, and if this gets us better results, then I'll explain my thought process. Yeah, it's a lot better. Except when I draw over myself, I unerase using. Yeah. The overlapping is the problem. So the issue, let me just clear this out and draw it. If I draw this line, what I end up calculating is I calculate whatever the piece is before the segment before it, right? We'll calculate a circle, and then I put a circle up here. That's two separate pieces of path. And then I also calculate this border right here. And I calculate a line across and this border right over here. And so what that means is that each of these segments overlaps at each endpoint. When I draw, most of these segments are very, very short. That way the circle at the beginning ends up overlapping like that. Right? And then when I draw back on myself, the circle up here, circle down here, path, this edge, and this edge means this section right in here is inside of two pieces of path. So with non-zero, and I also have a giant square. Right? I'm trying to color only this stuff out here outside of the path. Or I can have even odd. Right? And so with even odd, this one is even and these are odd. So this ends up clipped and this ends up filled. And so as I draw back and forth over myself, which piece of it is considered inside or outside of the path. And so what I might have to do is for every piece, instead of trying to calculate circle and boundary, this boundary, yeah, I'm not sure I can fill the pieces I need to fill. The right way. What I was doing with this business right here is it has a separate problem where I could either consider all of this the inside of the path, and what this does is this flips it. That way all of this is considered the inside of the path and is filled, which means this is erased. But then when I stick the next segment on it, this guy fills the inside of this guy. That makes sense at all. They're overlapping on like these little chain links. And this guy does the right thing for himself, but screws up these two guys. This guy does the right thing for himself and screws up these two guys. This guy does the right thing for himself and screws up these two guys. Here's what's going on. Look, I don't think there's a wrong there. I think we have a blend mode on shape layer. Man, that would make. Oh. Maybe that. Maybe we can't use blend mode. Shape layer doesn't have its own delegate, but the CA does have. Draw layer in context. maybe that lets me. This guy says render. Oh, I see. He's using that in a draw rect, so he's rendering with draw rect, which is not what we want. But we might be able to, as defined, we can configure any layer state affecting the contents prior to, but we can't affect the context. Might be able to do that. Draw layer in context. Then make a checkpoint real quick. There we go. So we can go back there if we ever need to. Let's just get rid of some of the stuff and try something. Here for stroke. Delegate. A shape layer. What if we did interface a eraser layer? There we go. So let's do that. And then is eraser. It's an eraser with the stroke, tool, color, nil. Right? Then down here we have if right? And then here we can set our blend mode, just like we did over here, right? And we reset it to normal. So that might actually be, that might be okay. I'm going to be very excited if that does what we want it to do. Okay, so let's review. Make sure that we think we're doing what we think we're doing. A brand new stroke comes in that we've just drawn. Never seen it before. We get a layer for it. It is an eraser. So it comes in here. Now a layer is not cached. That is the problem. So here we actually want that, right? No, so if it's dynamic width, our containing layer. Yeah, so if it's an eraser, wise. Normal layer. Now we get a normal layer, our correct class here. I'm going to break this one. Okay. Adds everything to it. Fill color of white. It adds it as a piece of cellophane on top of each other. Adds our eraser stroke, cellophane on top of that. When it comes time to render it, set our blend mode, draw it, set our blend mode. And I think we're okay. Let's take bets. Oh, look at that. Look at that. We're in the business. That's awesome. That's really exciting. Cool. Okay, so now let's fix, man, this way easier than I thought it would be. That's exciting. Now let's fix this one. So we're going to have that, and we also have a CA eraser shape layer. There we go. Down here, same thing. There. Fine. It's gross code. I don't like it, but I'm happy with it. Let's turn off dynamic width. Now we should hit this code where everything is a fixed width of 2. Let's make it a fixed width of 10. There we go, fixed width of 10. Feels good. Eraser. Angry. Why is it angry? Eraser shape layer, eraser shape layer. There we go. Great. Success. It works. That's the most important thing. And now that it works, we can clean it up. Awesome. Okay. So to clean this up, I'm going to make a category. Then we're going to look up some code. CA layer. This is going to be, let's call it the Draw UI category. we're going to add a property. And adding properties is kind of I don't know, mix in. Is that the right phrase? I think that's the right phrase. Where you can kind of just add properties willy-nilly to existing classes, add methods, add whatevers. That's kind of what we're doing. AppKit. Why do you care about app? But the problem is that Objective-C does not let us add properties. It only lets us add methods. So we have to cheat. Cheat by looking up old code and loose leaf. Yeah, that's what I want. I want you. Element array. Okay, cool. That's what we want. We want this. So this is accessing the Objective-C runtime directly to let us do things that the language itself usually lets us do, but this lets us kind of run around and do things without the without language support. It has to be a car. I think it just has to be a racer prop. Yeah, get. There we go. There we go. Now we should be able to set this eraser property on any CA layer that we want. And these are really annoying me. Let's fix that so that way we don't have any warnings. So clear. We want a leading. Oops. Which two is it angry about? This one. The leading 0. There we go. And the other one is the save button. Okay. No more build warnings. Great. Very good. Okay, so now what we should be able to do is get rid of these, which are kind of gross. Turn our layers like we used to. Very normal. Here. Eraser layer. Clear it. And here. Set it. Oh, but that needs to go here. No, that needs to go, yeah, that goes here on the stroke itself. The entire stroke is an eraser. Okay, so I think that's what we want. That's cleaner, it's nicer. Canvas layer, do we care about that? I could probably revert that as well. Come to think of it. Let's pull that canvas layer out. canvas layer, get rid of that canvas layer, get rid of the is eraser, get rid of is eraser. Yeah, we're cleaning up all kinds of code. I'll view set actions. Let's make sure we're still setting our actions. Where's that supposed to happen? Right here. Okay. Pretty good. Still works in that mode. Let's do it on the dynamic width mode. Fantastic. Wonderful. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to prove we've been using white as the eraser color. But let's prove to ourselves that we're actually erasing and not just drawing white on top of it, right? Here we go. See, this one is just drawing white. Wonderful. That's funny. But here, these others, the tiled, the naive, and smart are doing correct. This layer. Let's go back here. A layer renderer. Oh, we're not calling the delegate method at all. Man, I was so proud of myself, and then I found out I did the exact wrong thing that I said I wasn't doing. Really funny. That is really funny and terrible. Eraser layer. Maybe I'm just not understanding the delegate method. That method is called maybe it's because it's a but saying this render method right here, it's saying it should be called if a layer has the set needs display method on it, which we do. So this layer is a regular layer. All set needs display. All set needs display after we add it as a sublayer. It's rendering like a normal shape layer. What are some of the other methods? Get a layer will draw. Yeah, I'm just not understanding. I think we have to go back to the mask idea. The layer mask idea. Alpha channel. Please get rid of purple because oh, I'm opaque. Fine. Mostly white. And draw. What's the right strategy? What's the right strategy? Do it correctly here. Here we have blend modes. There we do not have blend modes. Yeah, so he's just doing a draw rect, not what we want. Depositing. Is that the magic word we need? Depositing filter. I'm going to do a CI filter. What filter names do I have? That's what we want. We want a color blend mode filter. That's what we want. How do I use that? I think that's what I want. Filter name. Color blend mode filter. And then I think I need to set, what? Where is it? Oh, or the filter. Unknown class method. Right here. Like iOS 13 only. Color blend mode filter. Maybe it's not available on iOS. That's what this guy was saying. Okay, layer filter. What is it? Positing filter. Yeah, that's not helpful. We already looked at that. I mean, we might just be out of luck. I might not be able to use, still not be able to use these. I can create a filter, but I can't get his name. Hey, how's it going? Hopefully, you said no audio. Hopefully my audio is coming through. My chat's off to the side, so it's hard for me to see stuff sometimes. Maybe in core image. That's a good thought. Although this guy compiled, so it should see it. Probably not import. I think it's just an iOS thing. So compositing filters might be a dead end if we can't figure out how to create a filter, right? What if we do filter names in category? What are my category options? Those feel like the right category, right? CI category built in. That feels promising. Filter category keys, distortion effect, composite operation. I think we want that one. That feels good. Halftone effect. No, I don't want that. Just hue, brightness, contrast. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just see what filters we get. I do really enjoy Objective-C. Thanks. I have no idea who just subscribed. Oh, Nightblaze. Thanks, man. Appreciate the follow. I really do enjoy Objective-C. I've not used Swift very much, so I think I just really enjoy Objective-C in part. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of 219 filters. Man, that looks promising. Blend with alpha mask. All right, I just got distracted. The world is going correct. Let's try that. Let's see what happens. Color with alpha mask. Yeah, I like Objective-C because it's can be as safe as you want to be with it for the most part. Its type system is okay, but it so it does a good job with types, but it doesn't hit you over the head with it, which is I think what kind of keeps me away from Swift, where it's very strict about types. One thing that's really handy in Objective-C is you can go right, and so here I have an object that is nil, so I can do can call a method on nil and I don't get a null pointer exception. So that's super convenient because then I can do, I can keep calling methods without having to check for nil every time. So I can call tumble, and then with whatever that return value is, I can return bumble. And if this is nil here, then this guy's automatically nil here, and I don't have to check for nil in a billion different places. I can just code, which is I don't know, what does double question mark do? Swift. So question colon is if well, as object foobar, right, equals something, then I can do mumble equals foobar or bumble, right? And if foobar is nil, then it's going to go over here. If foobar is not nil, this statement right here is equivalent to this statement right here, right? Where the thing that you're checking is just returned right away. But if it doesn't exist, then it's going to return this thing back here. If this is falsy, right, then it returns that. Weird. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about the voice thing. Okay. OBS tells me that I'm live, and it tells me that my audio is going through, not dropping frames or anything like that. So I don't know. Is anybody else able to hear me okay? The audio? But now that we've procrastinated enough, because we found our blend mode that we think is going to work. Yeah, it must be a Twitch bug. No, it's not a big deal. I'm glad you brought it up, because if it would honestly not surprise me if my microphone was on mute for like the past hour. I've done that before, which is funny in hindsight. Okay, so we're going to create a blend mode with alpha mask, which sounds like it does the right thing. It sounds like it's going to filter based on the alpha value. And since this layer has alpha value where we've drawn our segments, then it should, this might do the opposite again. It might do the exact opposite of what we want. But even if it does that, that'd be one step toward the right direction. Let's hit go. Let's see if this filter does something. Our breakpoint. No, it does not. What if we ask it to rasterize? Does that affect anything, do we think? Nope. So theoretically, this is rasterizing, and theoretically, it has a filter. We can set properties on this filter somehow. Filter with name, enabled. Yep, it is enabled by default. Yeah, I'm not sure on this one. Out of my depth on these filters. I don't know if I'm aiming in the right direction. There you go. So just to talk through it again, here's the problem. Problem is that whenever I draw, this stroke is made up of lots of different segments. Each of those segments has a closed circle path at the end, and it has sort of rectangular thing here. And then this, if the next stroke, the next element, is going to do the exact same thing. So it's got one of these two, right? And if it's very, very short, if it's a very short segment, then the circle is most of it, and it has just a very short line back to the previous element's end circle, right? So most of the stroke ends up being this circle. What I might be able to do is well, no, that only gets me part of the way. Because the other problem is there's this problem where this circular path overlaps this kind of rectangular looking path, and so the inside of the circle is inside of two paths. And then of course, if I overlap on top of myself, then the actual boundary, that stroke, this square right here, is also inside of the path twice. And so in addition to that complication where portions of the path are inside two or more paths, so if I add all of the paths together into a single, we did that before, where up here we had a path. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but element, order path. We append all of them together. That actually, it kind of creates a different, to you and me, it just looks like a giant built-in rectangle. But to the computer, it looks like lots of overlapping rectangles and circles. And those overlapping rectangles and circles cause problems for it to decide what is inside and outside of the path, I think. I basically want to fill in everything that is outside of this. Outside of this, I want to be opaque. Inside of this, I want to be transparent. Really easy for me to do the opposite, to get the inside of it opaque and the outside of it transparent. Okay, good. I'm glad that the Twitch app works. That's strange that Firefox wasn't letting the audio through, but glad you figured it out. Oh, thanks. Coder's Life. Thanks for the follow. Welcome. How do we think we get the outside opaque and the inside transparent? Try something. We went down this path a little bit, but I want to experiment with it some more. So each path has the circle, and then it has kind of the rectangle, and so there's the overlap here, and then the next rectangle and the next circle also overlap. If I take out the circles and I only render the very last circle and the very first circle, then the rest of the stroke shouldn't overlap itself unless I draw like that, and then it'll overlap there. Right? Yeah, I think that's right. And so instead what we can do, I think this will work. I think this will be ridiculous, but things that work when they're ridiculous are way better than things that don't work that are not ridiculous. Right? I think that sounds fair. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm not going to worry about the oval, about that end cap. So now when we draw, we're drawing with rectangles, and you can see it's a flat end right there instead of that nice rounded end. But that's okay. So if I can get it to work with just a flat end, then that's a step toward success. Because then we can come in and we can actually, I've been wanting to just leave the circle and the rectangle because it makes it nice and easy. But what I can do is I can look at my rectangle, and instead of drawing a straight line, I can calculate this point and the arc, and then connect it that way. And add an arc for the very last element, and add, and the rest of them can be right. But what we're going to do is instead of trying to erase the entire stroke together, we're going to add continually more masking layers for each element. Right? And so then the parent layer back. So here is our shape. It is white. If this is a regular pen, and this is the eraser, right? Now what we're going to do I'm trying to think of a way to essentially build up this layer contains a sublayer, contains a sublayer, contains a sublayer, and every sublayer matches a different element. And so then that way I'm masking out one by one by one by one by one. This might be a good time for a proper CA layer subclass. Just let me pull the abstraction away somewhere else. I'm getting all turned around. My brain. Okay, two pen strokes, creating a third stroke. Add all the elements to it. Pen stroke. Okay. Yeah, so what I think we want to do, bring back our canvas layer. Okay. That delegate. Yep. If we haven't added it yet, then our draw view layer, sublayer, right? Yeah, we can still do that. Yeah, and so then everywhere else we're adding to our canvas layer. Let's just make sure we didn't screw anything up. We'll even just draw regular with the eraser for now. Yeah, so we can still do that, which is great. Our eraser still does a big white blob. Great. So now I'd like to try something. If oops, color. Yeah, if we don't have a color, then canvas. Let's just get our mask oriented the right way, and then we're going to worry about setting it up correctly. This should have the problem we had like an hour ago, where it is only visible inside of the eraser. Yeah, great. Now what we want to do is we want to take we have a color, normal thing. Otherwise, if we're an eraser, right? And now we want this layer is just a CA layer. We're going to create just one shape layer. there our first layer. Okay. Our path is going to be the entire stroke. The stroke automatically appends everything together. Right? What to do? This filled with white. We want the fill rule to be a CA fill rule non-zero. And I think sort of work. Stroke. Oh, sorry. This is wrong thing. Layer. That was correct. And then canvas layer set mask. Yeah. Sorry. Now I think it's still first. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay. And then this is I believe everything outside of this path now should be a 1, and everything inside of this path should be a 0. The non-zero should be filling the outside of the path instead of the inside of the path. It says it's saved, but then it can't. Yeah, it loaded it. Cool. Eraser. Nope. I'll make a giant rectangle instead of the infinite rectangle default. Load. Yeah. So there we go. But then now if we go back on ourselves, then right there in the middle, right? So that's one of the problems we were talking about, where so in here is 0, out here is 1, and in here is 1. But that's okay, because what we're going to do is we're going to create a mask per element, and so then a single element can never cross itself like that. A single element can only kind of sort of curve, but can never curve back on itself. I think that's going to be the trick. This is gross right here. I don't care. We'll fix that later. We will refactor that later to be not gross. But what I do want to do, here is our layer. element layer. Go. I'm trying to essentially build up well, actually, so I'm just gonna write out some pseudocode real quick. Some thoughts. This is essentially what I want to do, I think. Because what this is going to do is for every element, I'm going to create a mask. It's going to mask all of the content inside of this guy. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is our new canvas that is masked to this element, which can never overlap itself. So it's always going to render correct masked portion of the eraser. This is the mask just for that single portion. So this is a shape layer. Right? We set the mask. Now this guy is rendering correctly. We add the canvas to it. So now this is the content that is masked by that single element. Now we reset our canvas, that masked canvas. Now what that does is this guy loops back around, and so then the second element in the stroke masked, etc., 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 all the way down. If that makes sense, right? And so then by the time this loop ends, this guy is it's just a stack. If this is a stack of cellophanes, right? Stack of layers. And so this guy there, our very bottom layer, is now masking one element's worth of this layer, which is masking one element's worth of this layer, etc., all the way up, all the way to this was our original canvas layer, which has all of our pen strokes in it, which is now masked by 10 elements all the way down. I think that would work. The thing that I'm getting stuck on is that now that I have this, since I'm building it up from top to bottom, this is the 0th element of the stroke, and this is the 10th element of the stroke. And every time I add a few elements, every time I draw, as I pull my pen across the page, this is going to get called all over again, all of the same strokes. So I don't want to, I only want to mask once. I don't want to mask, infinitely many times for as long as my pen is dragging over the canvas. Right. think we can do is just this is eraser layer, right? The other thing we can do is we can do call it eraser depth. Right. Again, give us another property. What is eraser depth? No. Regular old eraser depth. Okay, great. Okay, so now we have that. Go. Canvas layer, set depth. Right. So now, as we're drawing through, hang on just one second. All right, so I think what this is going to do, this means that this bottom layer right here is now going to have a depth property set, say 20, right? Which means that next time segment layer, so layer is our eraser layer. What I want to do is just a regular layer. Good. Instead of adding our stroke layer canvas, we're gonna add the canvas stroke layer. We're gonna mask it for that single element, and then we set our canvas to that layer. Right? Then what we want to do is that. This isn't quite right, but we're getting closer. Our mask. Yeah, we're getting close. I think we need a subclass. I think that's going to make life a lot easier. There we go. So if we have a color, draw it, add it to the canvas. Otherwise, if we're an eraser, this layer stroke, the CA layer, I'll just stick it in here for now. Okay, eraser layer. There. Oh, I did the wrong file. Let's try again. There we go. Great. Great. Here's our layer file. That's what we create. Now what I want to do here I just want to do all of this logic in its own little box. Go. Then we can also have a property of the original canvas. There we go. That. And down, sorry, down. Where were we? Down here. Oh, yeah, sorry, this is let's do CA eraser layer. That is an eraser set up with canvas. Broke. Right, and so now this guy is going to become the root layer. So we're going to set up with either an original canvas there. I think that's what I was missing before, because the going through once is not terribly difficult. I mean, it's annoying. You're kind of building up this tree of layers. But what's frustrating is that right after I build up that kind of tree of, say, 20 layers all stacked on top of each other, I'm just going to come right back around again, and I need to build additional layers on top of it without rebuilding those 20 layers, ideally, right? And I think what's going to happen is I don't want to rebuild it and end up building 20 layers and then coming back for the 21st and building 41 layers and then coming back for the 22nd and then building 63 layers, right? I don't want them additive. I want to only have one layer per element once. Now I think the way this is going to work is the layer gets built. It will not have an original canvas. Original canvas will be nil. And so in that instance, it's going to get our current canvas. And it's going to set up with however many elements it has. And in the next case, it's going to get that same original canvas, which will be set this time because this layer will be the exact same object. So that means this will be what this was, and this will actually be itself. Right? Canvas layer will actually be itself. But this guy will always be the correct original canvas layer. That's what we want. Now, here, that original canvas, do the simple case first. If we have not built anything yet, if we're brand new to this universe, and here is where we want to do, actually we're going to do the for go. Okay. Now we're going to mask just this element right here, and that's it. Do that, we're going to do a CA layer for our masked element. you get the current canvas, and then the canvas is going to be you. Right? Yeah. Okay. Then we need to set up. So this is our canvas. Now this guy needs a mask. Right? So here's our mask that we're building. And this is going to look essentially like this, like our normal drawing. We're going to fill it with white. The elements path. Sure, we can have a delegate. Here we go. All right. So we've created our mask. Here's an empty layer. This empty layer gets our canvas, it gets masked, and then our canvas is that mask. Right? Now, I believe what actually makes sense let's go, let's add our category. Set our depth to our index. Starting depth. So we start at 0, right? -1 plus 1. So then this guy is going to be 0. So then this depth, actually we can just put the +1 here. That'll be a little bit nicer. So we start at 0. We get the 0th element. We set our depth as 1. Now our canvas is that masked element, right? So if we have layers and right? So if we have layers, then that means the canvas is our sublayer, and our starting depth is the depth of whatever that was. So that way we pick up where we left off. Right? Yeah, so now we pick up where we left off. Yeah. It picks up, it gets whatever the current canvas was, it gets the depth, picks up right from that same spot. It removes it because it's going to get added here to the next element, which is reset, and then add it to us. And I think that's what we want. How does that look to you? Does that look good to you? Looks really good to me. Because now we can just call this method over and over and over and over and over with whatever our actual original, well, this is the original canvas. So if we've never built anything, everything works great. And if we have built something, then we can just put it as original canvas. Who cares? We reset it here. I think that's okay. And I think what's going to happen is we also need to, yeah, I think this is okay. I think it's okay. Something interesting is going to happen. Who's voting for a crash? Draw the business. We erase. Interesting. That's not what I expected. All right, let's try again. Load, go to the eraser. Okay, how many elements does our stroke have? One has a move to element. Move to element have a path? Oh, yeah, right. We forgot. I think I deleted it. Let's just read. Bezier path. So we've got to reverse our path, right? With that really ugly rectangle. Right. There we go. So now it's the reverse of that path. What? So close. All right, so it's working in air quotes, sort of. Oh, weird. I'll go really short and quick. It works. But the longer I draw, I think what it is if I draw over myself, I draw backwards. Yeah. So here I go left and yeah. Yeah, that's weird. Also weird how it blinks for a moment. Curve element, fine. Might be that first oval. Let's ignore move to elements and see what happens. I just kind of want to hit it with a hammer and kind of force the square into the circle, you know? Oh, I'm in the wrong spot. I want to be here. I don't think this is actually going to change anything, but oh, I did it. I wanted. Yeah, that didn't have an effect. So what I would like to do, break there. That's interesting. Why would it be completely blank already right there? Let's do this. Let's do let's break when we actually have a little bit of depth going and load. So that means we're never getting depth because we definitely have more than 10 elements, even with such a short pen. Yeah. Okay, so let's try this. The hard part about this is to debug, I have to be physically clicking and holding and dragging over the canvas, so I can't break point mid draw, which is frustrating. Okay, so that's going to tell me how many segments I have. Starting depth is that. And mask new depth is that. Now we should see this getting recalled repeatedly. We should see this. It should increment. This should pick up where it left off from the last one right here. I think there's some sort of silly mistake where we're almost there, but just not quite. Yeah, it's always a depth of 1. So that's our big problems, is, which makes me think that it might just be as simple as this guy not getting set correctly. This is always coming back as 0. Oh. See? Yeah. I bet I bet that was. Yeah. There we go. Depth of 2. That picks up. It starts back at 2. Gets the third one. That picks up. Starts back at 3. Gets the fourth one. Yeah. Now it's doing the right thing. It is horrendously slow. But that's okay. I'm a little curious to see what happens if I put this end oval back. I think it's gonna be angry. Yeah. Yeah, it gets really angry. Because then it can't decide what's in and what's out. But if I did better math there, then I could clip it correctly. But then I think, okay, that's surprisingly quick. Yeah. Interesting. I feel like we're like halfway there. Performance is abysmal. Less worried about performance than I am about correctness, because performance we could fix later. But right now, we're terrible on performance and we're only half correct. So we've lost on both counts. Honestly, what might be quicker? So let's do this. Ugly, slow version of eraser, right? Now it's saved over there. So it might actually be better, faster, cleaner, safer is if we draw like let's restart it. We draw, oh, it has, yeah, I need to turn variable width on. Anyway, my point is these renderers here that just use DrawRect are pretty quick when the only thing it has to do is draw one single stroke's worth of information, right? which means it might honestly be easier to make. So we're trying to mask with shape layers. And what I think I'm going to do next time is still use a subclass for the eraser layer, but then that subclass is going to draw to a bitmap, and it's going to use that bitmap to image mask. That makes me a little sad because the entire point of the CA layer was for everything to be vector forever and ever. But I need to do, we can at least try it with the bit mask alpha, just the image alpha to the mask layer. That should work, and it should be relatively quick, even though it's no longer vector at that point, which is depressing. And then I need to do more research about how to maybe there's something in those compositing filters we looked at a while ago. There might still be something there where we can build out a shape layer and then do a compositing filter on it, or something like that. Anyways, I think that is all I have for today. We'll push up the embarrassing branch as well, so you can look at that if you want to. But again, the code for today, this link, eventually that will be merged with this code, which we did not look at today, but that is what I want the pages to end up looking like for a notebook application, where you have different notebooks on different lines. You can go into grid view for every page, and then you can go zoom into every page, and then on each of these pages we would draw with the canvas that we're using on that draw UI. So that's the eventual goal. So you can look at both of those repositories. They're pretty fun. But so far the best contender, honestly, is just the simple, good old-fashioned draw rect, which I was not expecting. Maybe some combination of this draw rect and the tiled layer, because the tiled layer is also pretty quick and would re-render as we pinch and zoom, so that way you'd keep the nice crisp vector edges. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting thoughts. Thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna try to stream occasionally, maybe once a weekish. So follow if you wanna come back. I'm not on a schedule, so the only way to get notified of when I'm on is to follow and get Twitch to yell at you when that happens. But that's all I got today, so I appreciate it. Have a good one. Sleep well. It's midnight 30 where I am, and I will see you next time. Thanks.